Step 8, add bank account and opening balance. All right, so starting here in accounting and reconciliation. Before we get started, I do want to point out that there's 4 actions to take in step 8. Add bank account, start bank feed, add opening balance to bank/ledger accounts, and learn how to reconcile. So all 4 of those are listed in step 8 on the checklist, but all of those may not apply to your brokerage. So it really depends on whether or not your brokerage will be utilizing SkySlope books for full reconciliation purposes, along with full accounting, reporting, and financial assurance. And if so, you'll complete all the steps. However, we have some brokerages that will just add bank accounts in order to add opening balances to those bank and ledger accounts, and then they're just going to be using it for reporting purposes. Some people only reconcile in books and have data flow into QuickBooks or use a secondary system. So you'll basically pick and choose whichever are applicable to you. However, as I mentioned, if you're going to be using books for full reconciliation and accounting purposes, then you'll complete all steps. So I'll complete them one by one, first starting with adding your bank account. One other thing to note is some of these steps require you to know when you're moving your accounting into books. So you'll need to know your exact launch date. And you may not know that at this time. And so some of these items you're going to come back to at a later time, but you can do some of the initial setup. For example, adding the bank account, you can go ahead and connect your bank account and add it into the screen using this Add Account button. And then you can come back later and start your bank feed once you know that date that everything's moving over. So clicking on Add Account, you'll notice you can add bank account, trust account, or create manually. Now, when I click bank account or trust account, it's going to use a third-party service called Plaid, where I can log in with my bank credentials. It is safe and secure. But if my bank isn't there, I think there's 10,000 plus institutions, but if it's not available, then I can create manually by uploading a CSV. Okay, and that's covered in the article that's included in the checklist. But I'll really quickly just show you the high-level steps that are listed in that article. You'll click Add Account. You'll use Plaid. Click Continue. You don't have to enter a phone number, but if you want to, if you already have an account, you can enter that and it'll connect to your existing account. And then you're just going to go ahead and search for your bank, find your bank, select it, and then enter your existing credentials. Once you have done that, then the bank line item will be added here. So I'll go ahead and show you now a different account here that has some banks that have been added. So you'll notice now the bank accounts are added here, and you can add as many accounts as you have. You can even add credit cards and trust accounts. Once you've added that account, then once you are ready to complete that second step of starting the bank feed, you'll click on the action menu. And again, this is covered in the article. You'll click Start Feed, and then it's actually going to ask you, I haven't connected this, but instead of seeing that pop up, you would have a Start Feed pop up, and it would say, when do you want to start your feed based off? And then you could enter that date. And then once you've done that, then it'll activate your bank feed. So now I'm going to hop over to a different account here that has some bank accounts already added with activated feeds. So once you activate the feed, it'll give that blue color to the little icon here. And then when you hover over that, it'll show you when that was activated. You can always come in here and click Stop Feed and then start it again if you need to change that date. Now, talking about bank feeds, not every brokerage activates your bank feed. It really depends on how you would like to reconcile within SkySlope books. If you do activate your bank feed, I'll give you a high-level overview. Then you can click on that bank here. Well, either way, you can click on the bank and you have 3 tabs. If you activated the bank feed, the first tab, Bank Feed, will show just that, all of your line items from your bank. And then in order to reconcile, you can click on the line item, and then the transactions not matched are all of the accounts receivable and accounts payable line items. And then you can go ahead and match it to the appropriate line item, make any adjustments if needed. And once the amount balances or matches, then you'll be able to click the match button. Once you click that match button, then the line item leaves the bank feeds tab here, and the transaction that it matched to will leave the transactions not matched screen. And then you can move forward with reconciliation. When you go into reconcile, it's important to complete the next step first, which is adding your opening balances to the bank ledger account. So I just skipped ahead to really quickly just show you how that functionality exists. When you go to reconcile and you create a reconciliation, you go into that module, it will automatically pull in all of your matched items already, and then you can just check a box to select them and then move forward with your reconciliation. If you don't choose to activate your bank feed for whatever reason, then when you go into the reconciliation module and start it, then you'll have to basically have your printed bank statement print it out or have it on another screen, and then you'll have to go through and check each item one by one. So the fourth step in this checklist is learning how to reconcile. We cover it in the accounting training that was provided at the top of step 8 that you definitely want to watch if you're going to be processing accounting in books. So we process that, we show it in video format, and then the article included in the checklist will walk you through it step by step as well. Now, one thing to note, after your bank is added within reconciliation, if I head down to settings and chart of accounts, for example, I just created this US bank in the reconciliation screen, it then flows into the chart of accounts, okay? Now, it's important that the chart of accounts is set up prior to adding your opening balances because all of these accounts will flow into the opening balance screen. So again, if you're connecting your bank and adding it into reconciliation via Plaid, then you'll go ahead and do that. It'll flow into the chart of accounts. You'll set up any ledger accounts in the chart of accounts screen if those aren't already set up. And then you'll head to opening balances. So in the article provided for adding opening balances, you'll notice there's prerequisites to create your chart of accounts, add your bank accounts, and then you'll need to know the date that your reconciliation or accounting will begin in SkySlope books. So at what date is everything transferring over? You can start creating your opening balance and come back and edit it later. That's covered in the article as well. But typically people do this once they launch, right? So they have that exact date. And then you'll also want balances for your bank accounts and your ledger accounts. So you can obtain your summary trial balance report as of the last date from your old system. And then enter those figures into the opening balance screen or obtain those numbers from your accountant. Or if you're just processing for reconciliation purposes and just adding the bank account balance, then you can do that as well. So clicking create in the top right, we'll go ahead and we'll get started. You'll notice the opening balances date is required. So then you'll go ahead and enter that date. So let's say we're starting on the 1st. And then you'll notice you can see all your accounts that flowed in from the chart of accounts screen. Now, the first column here, you can check zero balance. If you have any accounts with a zero balance, after doing so, it'll gray out the debit and credit columns. From there, you're going to take your summary trial balance report or account information provided from your accountant and start entering the amounts in the appropriate debit or credit column. Now, one thing to take into account is, do you have any commissions, bills, or invoices from your old system that are still in process, that haven't been taken into account on that reporting? And if so, you'll want to adjust the amounts to take that into account. So you'll go ahead and notate any totals for outstanding amounts in your old system that are still going to be processed but haven't yet hit that reporting. And then go ahead and enter that adjusted amount. Okay, or you can wait to do this until those are all processed and you have a report with exact amounts. Okay. Same thing with bank account for reconciliation. If you have anything that hasn't yet processed through that bank account and is not reflected and hasn't been debited or credited, then you'll need to make sure that's taken into account so that all of these values are correct. From there, you're just going to go in and enter the appropriate amounts into each field here. And you'll notice after entering amounts, if I scroll down to the bottom, that it's going to give me a total here. And if the totals do not match, then you're going to have this opening balance adjustments that it's going to automatically calculate. Now you can come in here and enter maybe an estimated opening balance date and get started if you have some amounts that you know are correct and aren't going to change. Or you can do like half of this and maybe you need to come back later because you need to double check some numbers. You can go ahead and click create even though there's a balance there. Once I do that, it's going to show me any accounts that have balances, and then it's also going to show me that opening balance adjustment. And then I can come in here and edit this. And notice it even showed me that line item that I had checked as 0. And now I can come in and edit. I can adjust my opening balance date. So now I know it's going to be actually the 3rd. And then I need to adjust any of these amounts or add additional amounts. I can do so and then click save once that is complete. And that is all you have to do to add opening balances. Now, after your opening balances have been added, then you're ready to reconcile. So heading back to reconciliation and clicking on the bank that you would like to reconcile, you'll click on that line item. That's where you see, again, those 3 tabs. And then you can click on reconciliation, click on reconcile. Your start date will populate. You'll enter your end date for the time period that you want to reconcile for. And then you're going to enter your closing balance. And so that'll be the closing balance for this particular bank account. And then once I click Start Reconciliation, it's going to go ahead and take that opening balance that was entered. This is a different account that I came into. So it'll take the opening balance for that account that was added in the opening balance screen. It'll take my closing balance, and then it'll show me all my transactions. Now, if I had already matched my transactions as I showed you earlier that you can do on your bank feed, there would be a little link button next to all of these, and then a little checkbox up here where I could just say add all previously linked transactions. It would check all of those boxes for me, and then I can move forward and make sure everything matched and complete my reconciliation. Alternatively, if you're not activating your bank feed and reconciling that way, and instead you have your bank statement in front of you, then you're going to need to go through and find all of your transactions and check them off one by one. And that completes the video for step 8.